right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in Exodus 18, and coming out of last week, we saw dead men don't wrestle. We saw Abimelech show up at the end of 17, and we saw how the Israelites saw Yahusha through everything that was happening. They called Yahuah their banner. And it reminded me of 2 Corinthians 12:9. Because we deal with weakness. We deal with doubt. We deal with lack of faith, as we talked about earlier today. And 2 Corinthians 12:9 says this, and I'm reading this out of the Greek expanded understanding, and it says, and he said to me, and his declaration still stands, my grace is enough for you, for power is moment by moment coming to its full energy and complete operation in the sphere of weakness. Therefore, most gladly will I, the rather, boast in my weakness, in order that the power of Messiah, like the Shekinah glory in the Holy of Holies in the tent of meeting, may take up its residence in me, working within me and giving me help. Wherefore I am well content in my weakness, in insults, in necessities, in persecutions, and in circumstances under which I am subject to extreme pressure on behalf of Messiah. For when I am weak, then I am filled with ability and with power. So we see clearly, as we understand those words, the power, as we talked about, is in him, given to us freely for our obedience, for our acceptance of the truth that he has become our Savior. So crossing over, we come into a situation where Moshe is overwhelmed, and it's because he's depending on the flesh to do what he needs to do. So we need to read through these words of this chapter and really place ourselves in this, because this is something that we are all susceptible for, and we have all done in the past. My wife has watched me collapse in ministry before. She knows that I know this chapter. She knows that I depended on my flesh and failed before. And I'm sure others have too. So we have to be real with ourselves when we read passages like this. We have to be honest with ourselves. This isn't just about Moshe and Jethro and Aaron and Joshua. This is about the Hebrews that he's writing about today, that we can continue. And then when we're all together, worshiping him, throwing our crowns at his feet, he can read our story. Right? Praise Yah. So we have 27 verses. We'll break it up in nines, 999. Sister Amy's not on here. That's 999 is the 911. So 999, we're calling on Yahuah, right? So let's break it up in nines. And for those new to the group, we read, whoever reads gets the first opportunity to reflect on what they see in those verses. So who wants to read first? Verse 1 to verse 9. Brother Mike. Go ahead, brother.
All right. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that Yahuah had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. And the name of the other was Eleazar, for the Yah of my father said, he was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he had encamped at the mount of Yah. And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come up to thee, and thy wife and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did, what is that? Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. Bow, I guess the word is to bow, and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Yahuah had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how Yahuah delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which Yah had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians.
All right. So you were at the 10. All right. So what do you see there? Or what stands up?
I'll have to go through back through it. Nothing particularly yet. I'll go back to it. Oh, well, I guess one thing I can just mention, I guess, is it's cool to see Moses is the leader of all these people. But when his father-in-law comes, it says that he bows down to him. I thought that was pretty cool. So even seeing Moses as the leader of Israel at this time, he still pays homage and bows down to someone else. Not in a worship sense or anything like that, or authoritarian state, but just I think it had to do more with respect. But I thought that was pretty cool.
No, I think you said it right in an authoritarian state, because father-in-law to him is more than just a title. He looks at Jethro as truly having authority over him in some sense. If you remember the way that they met, how he came to him. He was lost. He was in the wilderness by himself. He pulled him into his home. He took care of him. He married.
He was a priest as well, right?
So I think,
He was a priest as well, right?
Right. He was a priest as well.
That's what I see.
So he knew Yah. I think, some of the things we're going to look at in this chapter suggest that there was a certain way that he looked at Yah, and certain things were revealed to him in this particular chapter, because I think that he looked at Yah, in my opinion, as an Elohim, but after witnessing and seeing certain things, he knew that he was the Elohim of Elohims, because I believe he thought that there were other gods as well. Just by his responses, and that's my opinion, not necessarily what we read, but we can gather some thoughts from what we're seeing because of his response to what's going on. You read something in verse 10 that we're going to talk about. So, but I do believe that he looked at him with respect, and he had authority over Moshe in that way. But only in the realm, as we're going to see, as Jethro had authority from Yah. And he even suggests that to Moshe, don't listen to what I had to say. Check and make sure that this is truly from Yah. So, Sister Nisha.
Yes, I was just going to comment on what Brother Mike said in terms of the bow. I was watching an educational program a couple of weeks ago about the customs of the Hebrews. And interestingly enough, it's very much a westernized custom for us to shake hands. The ancient Hebrews, from what I understand, always would bow as a mode or a sign of respect. And so Levi agrees. And so I just thought about that whenever Brother Mike mentioned that in the ancient Hebrew customs, we would be bowing versus shaking someone's hand.
Absolutely. One of the things that I was going to mention later is in direct reference to what Sister Nisha just added. Because remember, in Genesis, Abraham, we talked about the Bedouin, not rituals, but custom, how the hospitality would be shown. Even today, I work with some people that, have Bedouin desert dwellers, they call them, and the customs are still the same. How you would bow to them, how they would offer you a cup of coffee. If they offered it in the left hand, it meant, when you finish your cup, you got to roll. If they gave it to you from their right hand, it meant drink that cup. There's more to come. You can stay for as long as you want. How they would bow, how they would take off the shoes, how they would come into the tent and dwell and then have a meal. So absolutely, Sister Nisha, that's exactly what we're witnessing with Moshe and Jethro. Great point. What else do we see? It's a whole lot here. I think Mike, touched on the fact that he was a priest. It says that in verse 1. He's also a descendant of Abraham and a follower of Yah. I do think in the Midian culture there were, other beliefs. We know that Zipporah wanted her sons to follow the customs of the Midians, which were not circumcised. So that's kind of what I was leading to when I was saying there were things that Jethro was still learning. And I think we see it in verse 9 and 10, that he comes and says, this is the Yah, and I have to follow what he's saying versus customs that the Midians follow. So, JP.
Just thinking about, him being a priest, Kohen, it says in the Hebrew, and like you just stated, he is a descendant of Abraham. It's his son, Midian, the Midianites, I guess I would say the Midianites. So it's pretty interesting. I was just looking at like the lineage and seeing how through Sarah we get Isaac, and of course we get to Jacob, and we get the 12 tribes. But through Keturah, you get Midian. And I was just like kind of pondering on what kind of priest he was, if there's a certain religious or religion type of group that comes from them people. You know what I mean? Because I know when you go the other way through Hagar, I think there are a good number of people that will say Ishmael would be where you get, Muslim, I think, religion. So it's just kind of some of those thoughts I was thinking about, like what kind of priest was he, as far as that, and how you get this mixture now from Moses going into these other people. So just some thoughts I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I think, when we get in the next portion, verses 9, 10 and 11, I want to kind of go into some ideas from the Midian culture and what they may have believed. Because, in verse 11, he says, now I know that Yahuah is greater. You know what I mean? So there's something behind him saying that, and I'll go into kind of what the Midians believe. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So about the priest part, I know I had the belief before when I was kind of probably ODing on the Melchizedek stuff back in the day. And every time I saw a priest, and if it wasn't a Levite, I was like, Melchizedek. So I was like, oh, everybody's Melchizedek. Which, I mean, he could have been. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm not gonna say that he is just because it says he was a priest. Because that word Kohen, it's mostly always translated as priest, but it does also mean like officer, chief, or ruler. So we do know he would, he was definitely a ruler, of the people he was with. So it doesn't necessarily mean he was a priest of the Most High. It could, I guess we'll have to look at context, but it could just be calling him Kohen as ruler or captain or chief or something like that. We'd have to have more context.
Absolutely. JP?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that Mike's bringing out, that because just looking at, even according to the Strongs, it says literally one officiating. So that's what it could have been more directed towards, him being officiating his people or his family, or maybe even the tribe that's right there in that area. He could have been that. And then the second, I just wanted to bring out, it says that in the first verse, it says again, it says that he heard of all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that Yahuah had brought Israel out of Egypt. And it was just, that's because even if he was from a different, part of Abraham's lineage, he's getting to witness from hearing and then seeing Moses come of Yahuwah's power and his greatness, that I'm sure, of course, Abraham is his, descendant, like he's coming from Abraham. So he knows who, it's not like it's something new to him, but he's getting to witness it in another way. So that was something that was interesting.
Right. I keep trying to tell y'all we're going to hit it in the next set of verses, but true JP style, he won't let it go. Just won't let it go. All right, Mike.
I'll let it go.
Yeah, no, definitely, absolutely. I'll just say this because we're going to go into it. The Midians, from my research, knew who Yahuwah was, but just thought that he was one of many gods, and didn't necessarily partake in all of his laws, precepts. That's why they didn't circumcise, right? That's why we have what happened with Zipporah. But as he goes into, verses 10 and 11, we see that he now sees and places Yahuwah, the name of Yahuwah is greater, right? Greater, and not just principal among them. He's the supreme Elohim. And I think that is what takes place when he states, now I know that he is greater. So that's basically what we were going to talk about. So go ahead, Mike, you can speak on it.
Yeah, so just you giving that perspective and that context too is cool, because if I'm not mistaken, it was Jethro that was kind of I don't know if necessarily he was teaching Moses, but I know that Moses found out about Yah or learned stuff about Yah from Jethro. And if I'm not mistaken, Moses was the first one actually given the name of Yah. So I know Moses, he was there in Midian, or with the Midianites, when he was spoken to Yah through the burning bush. So I can imagine him telling Jethro what happened, and him speaking to Yah. So then him leaving and coming back and be able to tell these testimonies to Jethro, and that's why I can see him saying, truly he is greater. Kind of what you're saying, but to see, he, like I said, I don't think he knew his name before. I think Moses was the first one to get his name. So here's Moses going to Jethro and telling him about the God that Jethro is supposed to have been known, and now he's seeing the things that the name of this God that he taught him about,
Right.
actually seeing things manifested that he never saw. So yeah.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Like the name, right. So I stated before, he knew the name. He knew that there was a Yahuwah of Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But right, you're right. Knowing the name was new to him through Moshe. I agree with that. Good point, brother. Man, nobody pulled out Zipporah, right? Verse 2. What do you guys find interesting about that? You know, we don't hear anything about her after the incident in chapter 4, right? Now she shows back up. So she was away from Abraham, you know. What do you, anybody want to speak about that or see anything there? No? I think it's pertinent to the point where it comes to the names of their sons, because it's talking about the sons, the two sons, Gershom, which meant stranger there, right? This is speaking of Moshe, right? He has a name of Moshe, what Moshe actually was. And then Eliezer, which means my Elohim is help, or my Elohim is power, you know. So there's something there when it comes to mentioning Zipporah, then the names of his two sons. Very little known other than what we have, you know, written in scripture about her and why she wasn't with Moshe. But I think, interestingly enough, she's placed here in this vital moment where we have Jethro, herself, and her two sons reappear in Moshe's life. Anybody want to add anything to that or see anything there? If not, we'll move on. All right, Sister Linda.
Elder Rod, didn't Moshe leave Kaporah with Jethro when he went to deliver Egypt?
He did, absolutely. I stated that a minute ago.
I thought that was the question. I thought you was asking where was she? How did she just happen to show back up? So
No.
I mean, Jethro found.
No, I'm not asking why. I'm not asking. I'm asking, do you guys see any significance in her appearing here? You know, we know she stayed with Jethro when Moshe went, but the significance of her being mentioned here versus the last time we heard about her, you know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, just thoughts. I mean, we don't have anything. That's why I said we don't have anything more than what we see. But I was just trying to see if anyone had any thoughts on or thought anything about her bringing her coming back into the picture at this point. Because then again, we don't hear much, if anything, about her going forward. So just wanted to pull that out. Go ahead, Mike.
The only things I can think of, I guess it doesn't necessarily, I guess, add anything to the story, but just to bring up some other things. The scripture is Messiah talking about anyone who's not willing to leave mother, father, husband, or wife for my sake is not worthy of me. I don't know if maybe that kind of character may tie into it, and then that's really all I got. I don't know if you can tie that in.
You know, it's funny you say that because we know that Messiah always spoke Torah. You brought that out earlier in something you were saying. And you have to think that he meant that. Like, that's literally what Moshe did. He left first Egypt. He left the comforts of Egypt first, right, to go into the wilderness. And then when he got called to lead the Israelites, he left his wife, his father-in-law, and his sons, right? So
he left royalty to become a servant.
Absolutely. That's literally what I think Messiah had in mind when he spoke those words. And we always have to look to make those connections to Torah, because that's what he spoke. You know what I mean? Everything we see in the New Testament was a regurgitation of the Old, you know, and I think making that connection makes this book come alive to all of us. And I think we wouldn't be here unless we realize that, right?
Yeah,
So,
he said everything Moses spoke of was about me. So there's Moses there.
Great job. Anything else there, Brother Will?
Yeah, no, I guess the only thing, because we're just starting the chapter here, but the only thing I pick up on, for me, it's interesting that she was left behind. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm really curious about at this point. It's the only thing I wanted to bring up at this point on this.
Well, let's do this right quick. Before Sister Diane goes, let's go back to chapter 4. And I'm going to read I'm going to start in verse 24.
Okay.
It says, and it came to pass on the way at the encampment that Yahuah met him and sought to kill him, right? Speaking of Moshe. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at Moshe's feet and said, surely you are a husband of blood to me. So he let him go. So then she said, you are a husband of blood because of the circumcision. So there appears the last mention of Zipporah that there was dissension here. It also appears that there was anger, partly because of what she had to do to her son, and that she knew exactly, why Moshe was about to kill him. And may I go further to say the suggestion upon the wording here suggests that she might have been the reason that Moshe didn't do what Yah told him to do, because she knew exactly what the cause of this was going to be. So there might have been dissension there, and Moshe had problems at home. That is not foreign to Scripture. That could be very well the reason, because we don't have anything more than what we have in Scripture. So I would say that is a clear indication of a possible reason she stayed behind. She may not have been able to get over that because she also keeps her sons with her as well.
Right, that was Exodus chapter 4, what verse?
I read verses 24 through 26.
Okay.
Sister Diane, then Brother Brian. Oh, and then June. I don't know how long you had your hand up.
Yeah, that was really good, that connection there, Brother Rod. You helped further explain that to me, in that I really didn't know exactly what the connection was, but reading the Kiefer Bible, that is an Aleph Tav moment, right there where it says Moses' father-in-law took Zipporah, and Moses' wife. So that was an Aleph Tav moment. So when I saw that, I'm going, well, I don't know why, but whatever the reason, y'all definitely had his hand in it. But after reading what you just shared in verse 24, whether she wanted to, chapter 4, verse 24 through 26, whether she wanted to adhere to Moses' wish to have him circumcised according to law, which would have been 8 days old. He didn't force the issue, And obviously, and as you said, perhaps because, well, he had his own issues going on at the time. And it's like, well, I can't deal with this right now. I have a whole tribe of Israel, I'm trying to deal with. So just go back to your family for now, and then when Jethro presented Zipporah back to Moses, or we can say when Yahuah allowed this to happen, is something to that, in that somebody was forgiven. Was it Moses or was it her? That was forgiven. Her for being obedient, even though in the beginning she didn't care for it. Did she learn something in the years that Moses was gone? Did Moses understand something in the years that he was gone? Because after all, the child was circumcised. So
Well,
that's
there's more to it that I didn't speak on. I thought I did, but I forgot to mention that in the Midian, see, there was dissension there because, Moshe was supposed to do what Yah told him to do on the 8th day, but in the Midian culture, based on historical information, the sons were circumcised before they were married. I don't know how that would work, but that was the Midian culture. You're going to consume the marriage that way. But anyway, that was the culture of the Midianites. So it went against her custom. She wanted to obey the custom, but she had to do what Yah wanted Moshe to do in the first place, and that might have angered her. But again, you mentioned the Aleph Tav. It was the way that Yah worked it out to be, regardless of what we see here. So, Brother Brian, or June, then Brian, and then Nisha.
If you unco-host me, I'll have the ability to raise my hand, my electronic hand.
Oh, okay. All right.
I just I don't see this specifically said in the scripture, but I was wondering if it could just have also, in addition, been like a practical reason. If he's going off on a long journey and he's got to confront the Pharaoh and deal with all this stuff, it may not have been practical to take along wife and children, and we see this in many cultures where the man has to go off and do something, but he does it, and he puts his family in safety somewhere. In this case, with the dad, with Jethro, and I'm also wondering, because it says in verse, it says early on in Exodus 18 that Jethro overheard what Yah had did through Moshe, right? And in letting them exit Mishra, word got to him about that. And so, which I think that's what prompted him, right, to go meet up with Moshe, and perhaps that maybe that did something for them as well, like, like a confirmation, almost like we need to go reconnect, because what you were alluding to, there was potentially an issue, and maybe she was like, it's undeniable that Yah's hand is with you. You done led the nation out, and let's hook up. Or he was representing the wife. But again, this is just all wonderment.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's a strong possibility, and I think both could be true. I think there could have been dissension, anger, for what she had to do because of it, what she said to Moshe immediately after she did it, but also to bring truth to light that this could be a difficult journey for infant sons and a wife, not to add to what was already happening. So very strong possibility. Good points. Brother Brian, and then Sister Nisha.
Shalom, shalom. Yeah, what Mike was saying made me think of what Shaul said in a passage in his 1 Corinthians 7:29. And he says, "But this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none." And I thought this was an interesting thing that he said, because when you look at his disciples, there's a passage in Yahusha's disciples made a comment where they said that they had left all and followed him. I forget where that. I had this passage just up here, and now I don't see it anymore. But his disciples made a comment in the Gospels that they forsook all and followed him, and which they did. They left their families, their jobs, and all that stuff, and they followed him. And so it's interesting, like when you study the prophets that were called on the Most High, a lot of times they were alone, like they went off by themselves. Some of them weren't married, of course. Like I don't think Elijah was married, and certain ones that are prominent. So some like the prophets, like Jeremiah, Isaiah. I don't think they were married, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like when you are serious, like when the Most High really is like put a demand on your life, like to do a work for Him. It requires sometimes, like if it's serious like that, like it requires you to live that way, live as if you were single, like Shaul said, and it is a sacrifice, and things that might require you to do that at some point in your life, and so yeah, I just thought that was interesting. What Mike brought up is what made me think of what Shaul said, and just like looking at the history of the prophets and the disciples, and they did the same thing. They left their families, and so yeah, I just want to bring that out. That's it. Shalom.
Nah, man, that what you bring out is a very good point. I think there's also a balance to those that do have wives to be able to balance their life and take care of their family. I know, being married requires, maturity on both sides. A man that is a leader requires a wife to understand that sometimes his life will be over the care of others. That same man also has to realize that he needs to provide the needs of his family so that the wife doesn't get, disenchanted, or that's not the right word I wanted to look for, but weary, lonely. Those things need to be taken into consideration. There's a balance in a man that is called to be a leader that he has to have. A husband of one wife, a good leader in his home. If the family can't vouch for what you're doing, how can you lead the people? So there's a balance that one that is called to do the work of Yah, if he's married, to be able to handle, as well as the wife that he's married to. It's very important that we pick the mates that Yah truly has for us, because there is a ministry that he's presenting before the world. The very picture of ministry is a husband and a wife, right? So We have to remember that. Very good, Brian. Very good. Very good. Sister Nisha and then Sister Diane.
Yes, I was just going to expound on the comments that were made by Brother Brian and Brother Mike. As I was thinking about the sacrifices that sometimes, those of us that serve the Father and that are in this covenant relationship have to make, it made me reflect on the first commandment. And there's a scripture in Matthew 22, verses 36 through 40. Teacher, which is the great command in the Torah? And Yahusha said to him, you shall love Yahuah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. This is the first and great command. And when I reflect on that, when we are walking in this covenant relationship, how do we love Yahuah with all of our heart, with all of our mind, with all of our being? And that means putting him first above everything else. Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of Yahuah and his righteousness, and then all things shall be added unto you. So I think in a true Hebraic function, part of what we may have been seeing with Moshe and, leaving his beloved wife for that long was him doing just that and really abiding in that first commandment, which can be difficult at times. I can't imagine how hard, I'm not married, but how hard that would be to be in a relationship, but then go away from your loved one or go away from your children for a time because you are putting Yahuah first. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is true. I think, to finish that passage out, though, he mentions the first commandment and he says the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself. And we call those the hanger laws because on these two laws, hang all the law and the prophets. So he's mentioning right up front that there is a balance between loving me, right, and loving your neighbor, so that they go hand in hand, because you have to have a balance when it comes to doing the work of me. The commandments are caught up in those two. But I think everything you said was true as well. I just wanted to bring full circle to what that passage is also saying. Good stuff, sis. Sister Diane.
You mentioned, Brother Rod, if we saw anything in terms of the sons' names, Gershon and Eleazar. Gershon being okay. Let me just go right to the word here. For he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. So perhaps, and I'm just conjecturing, guessing here without just thinking about it up top, by Jethro presenting not only his wife, but his son, as if to say, well, Moses, you're in a strange land no longer, because Moses was in the land of the Midianites. He wasn't home, per se. And he is no longer, an alien there, even though he did take Jethro's wife, to be the mother of his children. She was given to him. But he still is no longer an alien, he's no longer in a strange place. And in terms of Eleazar, it say, for Yah, my father, said he was mine help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Another way I can see that as being helped is that the help came through Jethro, himself, when he gave Moses the advice that he gave Moses in terms of how he was to, in a sense, delegate, authority, to judge the people. So perhaps it's not so much the young men themselves as to the meaning of their name. In other words, Moses is no longer a stranger, and that Jethro was there to give him help, which he did, and even this was part of Yahuwah's plan. So all of this was in divine making there.
Great point, sis. I agree with mostly what you said about Eleazar and with Jethro, and we're gonna go into that as we read the next set of verses, because this is major what happens here. So that's a great segue. Let's read from verse 10 to verse 18. Who wants to take that? June? All right.
And Jethro said, "Blessed be Yahuwah, who has delivered you out of the land of the Mishrites, and out of the land of Pharaoh, and who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Mishrites. Now I know that Yahuwah is greater than all the mighty ones. Indeed, in the manner in which they acted proudly above them." Then Jethro, the father-in-law of Moshe, brought an ascending offering and other slaughterings unto Elohim. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with the father-in-law of Moshe before Elohim. And it came to be on the next day that Moshe sat to rightly rule the people. And the people stood before Moshe from morning until evening. And when the father-in-law of Moshe saw all that he did for the people, he said, "What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit by yourself and all the people stand before you from morning until evening?" And Moshe said, oh wait, what verse? Up till 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
18.
And Moshe said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to seek Elohim. When they have a matter, they come to me, and I rightly rule between one and another, and make known the laws of Elohim and his Torah." And the father-in-law of Moshe said to him, "What you are doing is not good. Both you and these people with you shall certainly wear yourselves out. For the matter is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it by yourself."
Praise Yah. You see anything that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, this passage is just so full of insights here. I was even reflecting how, how a lot of successful principles in the corporate world are based on really biblical principles, and they work because, it's based on a principle in the Bible. You know, what's coming to mind is like an outside consultant who comes in and they can more readily see the problems because they're looking at it from like an outside point of view with fresh eyes. And that's how I kind of see Jethro in this situation. He's arriving and seeing what's going on, and to Moshe, this is business as usual. I'm helping these people. In the response he gave, it was kind of like, this is what I got to do. The people have these needs. I got to impart to them, the law. And the father-in-law is saying, nah, this is not a good situation. But he's coming from a fresh, set of eyes. Because it even says they had elders. I don't know when they, formulated all of that, but in verse 12, is this 12, verse 12, it mentions that all the elders of Israel came to eat bread with the father-in-law. So it doesn't say like how many or when those elders came to be, or what exactly they did, but there were other council who they were, I guess everybody was kind of going with this status quo of Moshe presiding over all these people all day long. And of course, as you pointed out too, in verse 11, this is the last comment. The father-in-law is saying, "Now I know," almost whereas perhaps he didn't know before, because he was like, "Now I know," almost like beyond a shadow of a doubt. And this is just my opinion. He's saying that Yah is it. He's greater than all other mighty ones. I don't understand what is meant in my translation by the word proudly in that verse, because it says, "Indeed, in the matter in which they acted proudly above them." So.
What verse is that?
Verse 11. I probably could read a different translation or look it up, but I just wasn't sure upon reading it what.
Now I know that Yahuwah is greater than all the gods, for in the very thing in which they behave proudly. See, Luke 1:15. Speaking of the Egyptians, Luke 11:51 says, "He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their heart." So comparing Yahuwah to all of the other gods. You know what I mean? Because remember, we spoke earlier about the Midianites believed that Yahuwah was one of many gods. Now it's showing that he is the supreme deity. He realizes now that he is the all in all, versus what he believed before.
Got you. Yeah,
Um,
even be those gods that Yah conquered, the pretend gods that didn't really exist, but with the 10 plagues.
right, that he tore down, right? All that he tore down was based upon, remember, as we walked through what he did with the plagues, they all represented a deity that the Egyptians worshiped. But no, you raised some very interesting points. I see hands all over the place. I'm gonna let the people go speak. So I think I saw Sister Linda first, then Will. So we'll start with Sister Linda, Will, and then I'll pick between Diane, JP, and Shema for Yah.
Yes, I just want to mention very quickly that this is just, this chapter is just another proof of them practicing law even before Sinai. In 18 and 16, and when they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of Elohim and his laws, showing just how perpetual all of this was even before it was codified at Sinai. And also in verse 12, the sacrifices, the burnt offerings and the sacrifices that they set before Yahuah. It shows that this was just a way of life. It didn't start at Sinai. It was a continuation and it was a codification of everything. But these people, they understood their culture, and this was an ongoing thing. This is another perfect example, just like there's one over in Genesis and Bereshit over in, I believe, the 26:5. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Praise Yah. So just a continuation. Yah's law is perpetual.
Praise Yah. Yeah. Very good. Brother Will?
Yeah, sister mentioned earlier about Jethro there. I find him quite interesting individual. It's almost as if he had his doubts on, like a lack of a little bit of a faith on the whole journey of everything that just got done happening. Then because of the way he questions sometimes. So that's one thing that kind of grabbed me a little bit about, you know, where Jethro happened to be from a mindset on what's going on there with this whole deal.
What do you
And
mean by the way he questions?
it was in, I think your wife brought it up earlier, which is by now I know what verse is that to the faith?
Yeah. Well, we were speaking about the Midian culture and what they believed as far as Yahuwah being one of many, and how he lost that idea in seeing that Yahuwah was the supreme deity, you know, in learning. Because remember, not only has he heard about what happened with the Israelites in Egypt, I'm sure that him, you know, it's not, you know, they sat down and they, you know, they were partaking, they were breaking bread, they were sacrificing together. He probably spoke to him and told him details of what happened. So it's clear to him who Yahuwah is now. I don't know that he necessarily questioned, but it was revealed to him anything that he didn't know, because I don't really see a question in what was said here, but a revelation to him, something that lit up and went into his understanding that this is the supreme Elohim. This is my all in all. But I think you had another point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's good there. It's something to meditate on. And then verse 17 and 18 grabbed me as well when it says, and Moshe's father-in-law said unto him, the things that you doest is not good. You will surely wear away, both of you, and this people that is with you. For this thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to perform it yourself alone. So I pick up that he's perhaps, you know, concerned and trying to tell Moshe to slow down a little bit. Well, I see you got a few things to say there, brother. It's just something I wanted to bring out. Seemed like the family thing kicking in there, and you know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right in pulling that out. That's a great set of verses. I was going to speak on later, but just let's put ourselves in the situation. So we see that there's what, over 2 million people possibly. You know, I think we did the calculation last week, like 2,400,000 if we went by the numbers that were there that I spoke about last week, right? Using the 600,000 men, the wives, you know, I said every man had one wife. Let's say every man had 2 kids, and we came up with that number. So just imagine, okay, there's 2 million people. Just say there's 1,000 people in line, because not only are there people that have issues, there's also everyone thinks their issue is most important. So is there possibly bickering going on? Is there dissension for the information or solution that was given to their problem? All of these things are happening. If there's 100 people in line, if there's 200 people in line, looking down that line, one man doing all these things would be daunting. Just imagine one person running the whole city that you're in by himself, no assistants, no staff, all of the problems that go on in the city. Can one man do that? So I think this is the weight of what we see. And remember, this is a people that is known to gripe, that is known to complain, that is known to be unsatisfied to what Yahuwah is doing for them. All of this facing Moshe, and he's sitting out there every day waiting for the people to come up to him. So picture that, and then see how Jethro can be watching and say, man, this dude is going to snap a blood vessel in his head, right? So when we look at it that way, we can clearly see what's going on. Praise Yahweh.
Those are the ones that sojourned with them too. I mean, he had a different. Yeah, that was a lot to deal with, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So I got Diane, JP, and Mike. I don't know. I know Mike was last because I remember when his hand went up.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
All right. Diane, and then JP, and then Mike.
All right, that was mighty nice of you, Brother JP. This is an excellent chapter. Of course, every time I start this, I say all of this Exodus is just really fascinating. In terms of verses 10 through 12, connected in with Elazar again. I'm just going to start with Elazar because I want to keep that short. I'm trying to keep it all short, but I noticed this word delivered. I have it underlined 3 times. I don't know how many more times it may be in this chapter that is delivered, but with his name meaning he was mine help and deliver me from the sword of Pharaoh. His name is very appropriate because we see again in verse 10 where Jethro, blessed Yahuwah, said, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians. And then he says it again, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who have delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. So he's blessing Yah for delivering them, and he's also blessing Moses as being the one that actually led them out. So that would be another connection with the second son in terms of his name. The other thing that really fascinates me about Jethro and the fact that he was a priest, he was the priest of the Midianites, and obviously being led by Yahuwah. But then it's like, I would ask that question. They're making sacrifices. Everyone comes together, I guess you could say, in a big banquet to celebrate. Even Aaron came, and all the elders of Israel came to this great feast. And how did Jethro even know? So it's like, I see a commentary in my KJV Bible that said that the Midianites and the Ishmaelites' names were used interchangeably. If they say Midianite, or they could say Ishmaelite, and they're used interchangeably as being the same group of people, and that is supported in Genesis 37, where in the heading that I have, it says Joseph sold to the Ishmaelites. Well, in Genesis 37:28, it says, okay, 26, chapter 37:26. And Judah said unto his brother, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren were content. So he said, okay, we're going to sell them to the Ishmaelites. So in verse 28, then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 28 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. So we see that the Ishmaelites and the Midianites are the same people. And wondering how Jethro would have known part of the Torah. He knew some, but he didn't know it all. He became convinced here, even with the name of Gershom. He's no longer an alien in a strange land, because he too is coming to the full knowledge of Yah. But Jethro is a priest of Midian, and we know that Midian was one of the sons of Abraham, and we also know Ishmael was also a son of Abraham. So by the time Ishmael left the encampment, I guess you could say, he knew Torah, because by the time they're 12 years old, they receive their bar mitzvah, they know Torah. The law is what they learn. If they learn nothing else, that was their life. So, he knew Torah, but he had just not come into the full knowledge of it. He knew it enough for the sacrifices. He knew it enough to bless Yahuah. He knew it enough to know that it was indeed Yahuah that was behind everything Moses did. And he also knew that Moses was being blessed. He was being led by Yahuah, because he brings out Israel. He brings them out. As you say, 2 million people plus the animals. That was a huge feat. So this was enough to convince Jethro, who had some knowledge, of Torah, being a priest of Midian, who was a son of Abraham, so this is just something else that to consider. The Ishmaelites are tied in there as well. Amen. That's it.
All right, praise Yah. JP and then Mike.
Just on the verse, I think it was, where am I at? Oh yeah, it was verse 11. It really goes to show today with the term God, right, or mighty one. Here they use mighty ones in this version, but in the King James you see God. It just shows the specific of Yahuah, where people, they go on stage, and when they win these awards, or in the church, they're praying, they just say praise God. I know most of the time who they're speaking about, don't get me wrong, like I'm not gonna say they don't, but then there is other religions besides Christianity that do say God, and they're not speaking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So I see this even here with Jethro. He's saying, now I know that Yahuah is greater than all the mighty ones or all the gods, because even at this point in time, there were other mighty ones or gods in the lands around them. And so he identifies the power, and he says, this is the creator. Like, we see something that he's done. And so even today, I was just thinking, like, it just shows that our specific, when people want to know why you're saying a specific name, I'm saying Yahuwah, or some say, other pronunciation. It's not about pronunciation, but specifically it shows that. And so, and even Paul, I believe in the New Testament, I think he even mentions this, and he says, I think he says something in that same type of language of, there are many gods, but there's none like, Yahuwah. Like, this is specific, like the creator of. So just want to bring that part up. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely along the lines of my thinking as well. Brother Mike, and then Brother Brian.
Yeah, I was thinking of a smart comment to make at, not me, but smart comment to make at JP, because that's exactly what I was going to say, but instead I'll give glory to Yah for the Ruach. But no, well, I guess just that's exactly what I was going to point out. Even the fact that in the verse right before, he even mentions that Yah delivered him out of the hands of Pharaoh, who even by Pharaoh, which Pharaoh isn't his name, that's his title, which all the pharaohs themselves claim to be, that by definition claim to be gods. So that would just be another I guess support for what he was saying, is that Pharaoh, bright morning star, they literally worship themselves as gods. So good job, JP.
Absolutely, good stuff, brother. Brother Brian.
Yeah. I just wanted just a quick note with the in verse 12, I think, or was it somewhere else?
I don't know. What did you speak of, my brother?
There's the word. I was looking at the word elders.
Oh, okay.
Where it was talking about the elders were gathered to eat with them, and when you look at that word, it can mean elders in the office as we know it, like with the fellowship and things, but it could also just mean old man. So I just wanted to bring that out, like not to say old man or nothing, but yeah, they may have been like just like respected elderly men that were gathered they weren't in like an active, they didn't like hold an official office of the eldership, but they were like respected elders that they had in their families and stuff that were gathering. That's why like pretty much Moses was doing everything, but the elders were just like, yeah, they may have been just older men, because the 70 elders weren't appointed until like Numbers chapter 11, and that's later on down the road. And those elders, of course, were the office of like leadership to labor in the ministry and things like that. So yeah, I just seen that in the Strongs there. It could mean the office of elder, or it could mean old man. So, which in this case, I think it meant more older men, given that Moses was like doing everything himself, and it's not apparent that these elders were like helping them at all. So
yeah, but I think I'm trying to find where it speaks of elders before this, because the idea of what's about to happen is that there are a group of elders there, and out of those group of elders, there are specific men that Jethro is telling Moshe to pick, and he gives the specific characteristics that those men, out of these men, have to be. So we'll dig into that, because I'm gonna parallel that to something we see in the Brit. But the idea is that out of the men that were the elders, choose men that have these characteristics, as we're going to read in the next few verses. So you're on the right track, Brian. Brother Will, and then Sister Letitia.
Yeah, no, just real quick, just wanted to clarify, I think it was unfair when I said, I mentioned, it's almost like he had his doubts and not introduced the verse of why I said that. That was, JP brought it up. It was in verse 11. And the reason I mentioned that was when I read verse 11, when he says, now I know that Yah is greater than all rulers, for in the things wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. So that's the only reason why I mentioned what I mentioned after reading that verse.
Right. I apologize, brother. Something was happening at the same time. I missed the last part of what you were saying, why you felt verse 11 was a question. Or
No. My last, when I had an opportunity, when I brought up Jethro, it's almost like he had some doubts or something.
Right.
It was based on verse 11 when he says, now I know that Yah is greater than all rulers. That's all.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Because it would be fair for me to introduce why I mentioned what I did and I did before. That's all.
Oh, no problem. Sister Letitia.
I just wanted to point out something that it just keeps like standing out is in verse 16 when Moses is judging between, I think you mentioned like 1 million, maybe 2 million of the Israelites, and it's just interesting because he in verse 13. Hold on. Oh yes, in verse 13 it says from morning unto the evening. So he's out there, he's working, and I just wanted to point out something that just stands out is that he's not complaining, he's not kicking dust, he's not doing any of that. And we know already that is a lot, that he's carrying on his shoulders. But praise Allah because
Great.
Yeah, because of that, so thank you.
Praise Yah. Now, were you finished? Were you still talking?
Oh no, I'm done. That was all.
I thought you said praise Yah, and then I started talking. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, that word judge, as it's used there in verse 16, just simply means render decisions. So he's making decisions upon what their trouble is, what their difficulty is. And like you said, from morning till night, like that's a lot of people. Him not complaining doesn't mean that he wasn't going to be worn out, because I know many a, leader, teacher that was happy to do what they wanted to do, but they weren't listening to Yah, and they crumbled, folded like a wet paper bag, happened to me, you know what I mean? So praise Yah. Good point, sis. Because we would have missed that. June.
I was wondering too if maybe the people were all lining up to Moshe because it's established that he hears from Yah, and so maybe they felt like there was no other way to possibly get a decision that's from Elohim apart from Moshe. It just seemed like, because we see here there were elders, but they were all going to Moses, so it's like, and maybe that's their perception.
Yeah, there was no question who the leader of the Israelites were. He was sitting in a position of authority. He was the one that heard from Yah, even though Aaron was there. But we saw what happened when Aaron took over later on. But Moshe was the man that the people sought for advice, counsel, and so forth. So Praise Yah. So let's pick up in verse 19 and read to the end of the chapter. Who wants to take that? And we'll finish it up. JP.
It says, hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and Elohim shall be with thee. Be thou for the people towards Elohim, that thou mayest bring the causes unto Elohim. And thou shalt teach them, it says, ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear Elohim, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and Elohim command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land.
Praise Yah. What do
Wow.
you say, brother?
With just the wisdom, that the father-in-law was. I mean, I would only have to say that this was coming, by the guidance of the Ruach, to embark on this man Jethro to say these words of wisdom. Seeing, of course, we've seen in 18, he says, thou will surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. And so he says, it's going to be a lot, you're going to, over time, because you can probably do it for a while. He's probably telling me, you can do it for a while, but it's going to wear on you. And so I just thought that was interesting. And one of the one part it says here, and like there's a note, but it says, as fear Elohim, he says in 21, moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men. And it says, such as fear Elohim. So that term is just like a phrase, like they have, this is like a part of what they have to have. It's a criteria. If they don't got that, then, they're not going to be able to, because they're going to be in the flesh, or they're going to think more what their choice is going to be because of them as men, right? But if you fear Elohim, you're going to make a different type of judgment call. You're going to make a righteous call. So I just want to leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You nailed it with the last thing you said, as far as this is what these men must possess. It's prefaced by the weight of all the work that needs to be done. I think it was D.L. Moody that said, I'd rather put 10 men to work than do the work of 10 men. You know what I mean? You have help. Everybody needs help to do the tasks. But you touched on something that I was going to go into later, so I'm going to go into it now. There's 3 things that he says have to be part of the character of these men. One was to fear Yah. This was reverence. This was humility. This was obedience. They had to possess this, right? Men of truth. These men had to form to Yah's character. That's the only truth. Yah's word is truth, Scripture says. So these men had to be have reverence. They had to have humility. They had to have obedience of Yah. They had to conform to Yah's character, men of truth. And then he says 3, hating covetousness. These men couldn't be jealous of what somebody else had. If so, they're susceptible to bribes. They're susceptible to all types of corruption. Look at the world we live in now. Look at the leaders we have around this country. How there's always a discussion about corruption. You know, they were bribed. They took this payment. You know, all of these things are falling apart because they are not men of character. They are not men of truth, and they have covetousness in their heart. So out of these elders, pick men that specifically have these. It's a choosing here. You know, I also like what Moshe says in verse 23 when he says, what Jethro says. He says, if you do this thing and Elohim so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all those people will go to their place in peace. So he doesn't just say, just do what I said to do. Go seek Yah too. Make sure what I'm saying is in line with what Yah's telling you. And then if it is what he's saying, if it is what he's commanding you to do, then do it. Right? You know, what does this remind you of? You know, the weight, the work that they're doing, needing help, right? Acts chapter 6. Right? Now, in these days, or in those days, when the number of disciples was multiplying, there arose a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists, because their widows were neglected in daily distribution. Then the 12 summoned the multitude of disciples and said, is it not desirable that we would leave the word of Elohim and serve tables? Not that the work of serving tables was beneath them, but they had a specific work to do. There was help that was needed, right? There's a distinction there, so we can't get lost in that, because some people, you know, some people have piety in it. I'm not doing this. I'm the king. You know what I mean? The servant, you're a servant. That's not the posture here. The posture is these disciples have a work to do. You know, summoned by Yah to do. There needs to be some other brothers to help. You know, to serve tables. Therefore, brethren, seek out from among you. So there's several people there, but seek from among you 7 of good reputation, full of the Ruach and wisdom, who we may appoint over this business. But we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. So they were clear on what they were supposed to do. They sought men to help them with the other issues. Doesn't that remind you of the same thing right here? You know, what Jethro was saying, you're going to be overcome. You're going to get worn out. Seek men of good character. All right. Mike was first, and then I don't know who was next after that. I'll play it by ear. I'll give you a hint. After Mike, my wife's going. Let's go.
Yeah. I'll just go for everybody. No. I can see a couple different scenarios for this, but I'm sure somebody has some more context to narrow it down. The verse, it says, Yah will not give you more than what you can bear, or not without providing a way of escape. So looking at Moshe, with that verse in mind, it would leave a couple of scenarios open where, like, either one, it wouldn't have been too much for Moses. 2, Yah didn't plan for him to actually be the one judging. Or 3, he did, but it was too much, and then Yah sent Jethro to tell him that, because that verse isn't going to not be true. So something has to. Which one of those scenarios would you say it is? Is that Yah didn't mean for him to judge everybody, or did he provide Jethro's advice as a way of escape? Or do you think that Moses could have handled it?
Right. I think that it was a premonition that Yah is giving, that if you continue down this road, you will lose sight, because we can get, you know, we can have a gift and get so caught up in our gift that we don't understand that there's hope for instance, you know, we have 3 elders, right? And we do different things. But when there's rest needed, or when someone needs to step in, someone steps in. When it's too much for us to handle, then we got to call up a JP and a couple other brothers we got our eyes on, right? So, so we have to continue to understand that Yah sometimes speaks to us through his people, right?
Yep.
Just because someone says something that we don't see doesn't mean that Yah's not saying it. And men that are truly of Yah will say, listen, don't listen to me. Take what I said before Yah. If it not be true, make me a liar, right? So we got to pay attention to what he's saying. So I think, there's a premonition before the fall. He's equipped to do what he's done up to this point, but the demand is going to overtake you. Listen, this is just like sending Nathan to you know what I'm saying? So we got to pay attention to Yah's provision and Yah's guidance through our brothers and sisters, because that's the way it comes sometimes.
Thank you, brother.
Sister June, what you got for us this afternoon?
Well, part of my comment you already said, because I was going to say we actually see this played out in our assembly with JP, because the amount of people waking up to the truth who fill out that form and need to meet with someone to come into the assembly, it was overwhelming, so he was able to step in, and that whole delegation thing. Well, yeah, we got to those verses, we see that played out with what JP is doing for sure, him and his wife, Sister Letty. Also, I really liked Mike's question of, was Moses supposed to do this by himself, or I forget what option B and C was, but I think it would seem, and I'm only guessing here, that this may have come about organically, where he's leading these people. The people have issues. They naturally flock to him because he hears from Yah, and he's the leader of Israel. And I believe sometimes, we got to go through the hard thing in order to find the lesson, because now this is a reference point to see, okay, the way we were doing it, which we didn't even see wasn't the best way. Now, we can look at, this feedback from Jethro, and it says he tried it and then he saw the benefit of it. So I kind of think if he had went straight to Jethro's method, he may not have caught that lesson to see the distinction of a better way. And probably even the people could appreciate the better way, because they didn't have to stand in line from morning until evening, right? So it didn't just benefit Moshe, it benefited the people themselves from wearing themselves out, standing in those long lines. To now, for the small matters, they could just go to someone else to get that resolved. And and it's and I love the way these passages spell out the criteria, because delegation is excellent, but we do have to be careful, who we I don't know what the right word is, employ to be the delegee or the delegator or what, so, and I love those qualities. And we saw these and I wrote a note, we saw these in Brother JP: fear Elohim, a man of the truth, and he detests unfair gain. And we can see that in the way that he champions for his fellow peers and believers in Yah, making sure, trying to, speak on their behalf in a fair way. That's it.
JP made it up in the scriptures. I see a couple other faces that I see one particular face out in the wilderness there, chasing bears around. So let's see. I'm gonna go with Sister Diane, then JP.
Once again, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Sister June makes a very important point. You know, delegation is good. What would we do without it? But then delegation with the proper authority, you know, with the right people that you delegate to do this thing is even more important, because after all, they are representative of you. You know, if it's your company, they're representative of you. I just wanted to point out that verse 21 is so important, that in the Brit we see that Exodus 18 and 21 is used in 1 Peter chapter 5, where the elders are exhorted. I mean, it's almost like verbatim. They have to be humble. They have to put all their care in Him. They have to be sober, diligently, and because the devil, the adversary, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour. But they have to be able to feed the flock, you know, taking oversight thereof, not be a constraint, not willingly, nor filthy lucre. I mean, all of these are aspects of a righteous man, that, you know, a righteous elder, you know, the qualifications of an elder. And it's taken directly from Exodus 18:21. And not only in 1 Peter, but we also see this example in 1 Timothy. In chapter 3, it's like qualifications of the bishops.
Absolutely.
And then we see qualification, you know, of deacons. So this is very, well, this is instruction from Yahuah, you know, because in verse 20, Exodus 18 and 20, once again, we have some olive toms in there, you know. And 20, and thou shalt teach, that's an olive tom, them ordinances, and that's an olive tom, the laws, and shall show them the way wherewith they must walk, and the work that they must do. All of these are characteristics of an elder, a bishop, and not only that, but the elders and the bishops and the deacons as representatives, you know, of the church, for, you know, for the assembly, you know, for the body. If which you take it on up, well, who do they represent? So this here, it goes from Exodus all the way to Timothy as an example. We do have an example of how these things must be. So I'm not going to keep on repeating myself. I'll end it there. Amen.
Praise God. No, you know, and I was actually, it's funny you mentioned those other passages, because I was going to use those. The reason I used the deacon is because it emulated the same type of issue, that there were tasks that needed to be done by other people. That's why I used Acts. But you're absolutely right in the characteristics that are spoken of, specifically in Timothy, because here's the thing with Timothy. It says apt to teach, right? Apt to teach, but everything after that is a character issue. So there's many that have an apt to teach. There's many that want to teach that don't have the character. And we see that. We see people wanting to teach, you know, and they're not the people that should be leading. You know what I mean? There's an imbalance there. They don't have the character of Yah. You know, anybody can study and be able to regurgitate something, but do you have the true character to carry out what Yah is saying with humility? Does it come in touch with you, or are you just reading something and sprouting something out of a book? Because anybody can do that. You know, one of my favorite movie scenes is when Matt Damon walks up on a guy that's trying to embarrass his friend, played by Ben Affleck, where the guy's just running down all this stuff he read out of a book. So Matt Damon walks up and he starts quoting the same things and finishing the quotes. And he said, yeah, any first student in sociology will know that, you know, but what about boom, 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 boom? And he starts giving real life applications to it. You wouldn't know what to do. Then he says, then you'll realize that you could have got the same education you spent $1 million for a library card. You know what I mean? And the point is, anybody can read something. Anybody can study something, but the true character is something that has to be lived. This book is alive. It's not dead. We got to live it, you know? So there are characteristics to the men that lead the people of Yah, you know? And they have to be tuned in. And when I'm not tuned in, I got Brother Mike, I got Brother JP, I got Jadiel, I got, you know, Brother Rick, you know, I got Brother David, I got Sister Nisha, I got my wife, I got you, Sister Diane, I got y'all to kind of pull me in, brother, you know, come on in, you know what I mean? You out there in left field somewhere. And I think we have to be willing to be that for each other in order for us to be, you know, victorious in this walk that we have together. So it's about character, you know? It's about character. That's why no one rushes. You know, that's why we take our time looking at people. That's why we truly pray to Yah to say, is this man ready? You know, what is the evidence? You know, and I know of brothers, you know, I know of one particular brother who we were looking at one point and had character enough to say, you know, there's some things that I need to work on. I want to step back. So I just praise Yah for that too. That's character. That to me, that just said to me that this is when he's ready, because I know that this is a man of character, and you know everything will balance out. You know, if there's some things that have to be cleaned up, straightened up, it's going to happen. But Yah's call is on this man, so praise Yah for that. JP and then June.
And in verse 20, you know, he says, and this is, of course, Jethro still speaking to Moses, and thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. And that's just amazing, you know, because we see, I mean, I was just looking because we get to the Messiah, you know, and we get to the Messiah and we see what him being, as I was speaking to my wife, like, it was like the final judge. Like, he was like that final judge that came, and throughout history, we've seen judges being put in place, you know what I mean, to bring us back into the truth. And so with Messiah, it says, you know, we must walk as he walked, you know, and I believe that was in 1 John. It says here in 1 John 2:5, 2:6, he that saith he abideth in him himself also to walk even as he walked, you know. And then in 1 John chapter 5 verse 18, it also says, we know that whosoever is born of Elohim sinneth not. Oh, is that the one I don't know if that was the one I was gonna read. You're talking about the commandments. Oh, it's in 2 John. I'm sorry, it didn't seem right, but it would probably made sense anyways, you know. But you know, it says here in 2 John chapter 1 verse 6, and this is the love that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment that, as have you heard from the beginning, you shall walk in it. And since the beginning, it was like always, and this is before Moses, it was given to the people, given to Adam, you know, and it was just this love and just showing, because that's love, you know. Love is correction, you know what I mean? Like, love isn't just this. It's like, I love my children, I'm going to correct them to walk correctly, so I got to do that. I got to continue to guide them, you know. And my mom did that for me, you know. My dad did that for me at times, you know. So it's the same thing. And so I see that with Moses here, and that's again Jethro speaking to Moses, and it's like almost like you know, like encouragement, or like in a way of encouragement for me. Is like, he's telling him, thou shalt teach them, and this is what you're going to do. So I just thought that was an amazing portion of again, because it connected with 21. It connected with 21, and that's just another portion of the work, so we can't be afraid of that, I guess, to be taught, you know what I mean? To be taught. And so it's an important portion. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, that we understand, that when we're reading, Genesis to Deuteronomy, it's the account that Moshe was given by Yah. So even though we see, that, coming forward in the next couple chapters, we're going to see the law given. We have to understand that there was a law that was known, from Abraham, from Adam, that we have to understand was there, that wasn't necessarily spoke of other than what we have written. So very good point, brother. I think Sister Diane spoke about that earlier as well. Jim?
I'll make it quick. I just had a two-part comment. First, when Brother JP was bringing out verse 20, Jethro saying, and you shall enlighten them concerning the laws and the Torah and show them the way in which they should walk and the work they should do. It's that verse starts with and, because the first part of that is he's saying go before Yah. So it's not just telling the people or enlightening people what they should do. It's first go to Yah and hear from Yah, and then impart what you're hearing from Yah. And I thought that was pretty significant, because as leaders, we can't just be telling people what to do. We have to hear from the Father and make sure, what we're saying to them, we're getting that word from him. And I love the way Jethro says, now listen to my voice, let me counsel you. And Moshe was open to hearing, listening, and following through with his counsel, because we see he put it into action. But the part two of my comment is this whole thing really reminds me of the passage in Romans 12, where it talks about we are a body we're one body, but in that one body we have many members who have different gifts. And that's how Yah made the body to operate. We can't do it alone. Just like Jethro was saying, you can't do it by yourself. And if we operate in the way the body is supposed to function, Paul breaks it down here. This is in Romans chapter 12, it starts at verse 4, and then it goes down. He's saying, for as we have many members in one body, all the members do not have the same function. So we who are many are one body, and the members each one. And he says, if it's leading, let it lead. If it's teaching, let it teach, and so on. If it's serving, and then we even see in 1 Corinthians 12 the spiritual gift of even administration, right? And so that all points back to Jethro's whole system of saying delegate. And I see those gifts of of the Ruach there, or the spiritual gifts, the administration, leading and teaching, and him putting and picking those with, like you said, the right character, because they're going to have the right character if they have the fruit of the Ruach, and these are supposed to be spiritual gifts, that they have. So I just wanted to share that.
No, very, very important what you said. It's the reason he uses physical, visual things that we can understand. Fruit, trees, agricultural, the body. When we think of the body and we think of the functions of the body, we know that a hand can't do what a foot is supposed to do. Like, you can walk on your hands if you want to, but you can't do it all day long, right? So these things are very visual to our thinking, to make us understand or help us to understand what Yah's saying. All right, brother, 3 minutes. We got to close. So JP will be the last one.
Just to speak, we see in verse 24, it says, so Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law. And that was pretty impactful. Just even read that, you're like, wow, like Moses coming from speaking, like at his position, he listens to his father-in-law, and there is some love there and respect and understanding of discernment. Like he hears like what the father-in-law is saying, where it's coming from. But the portion that was 26, verse 26 says, and they judged the people at all seasons or at all times. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. So
right.
even in this situation, when you seen in verse 25, he had, he situated them to be rulers, but there were still hard causes that even these rulers or these judges, they couldn't handle. It was going to be over their head. So then they still brought it back to, the head, or I guess you would call Moses like the elder of them. You know what I mean? So
right.
I just want to bring that up because I believe that's at times where even for myself, if I talk to a brother or sister in my life and I'm like, you got to bring this back to the elder. Let's shoot it back that way. See what they got to say about this one.
I was going to say that. I was going to use you as an example because you and I have had those conversations, where you're like, can y'all take this one? You know what I mean? So it's true. We have to pay attention to, what Yah has given us, the abilities to, because like June said earlier, we can't just say anything to the people. We got to make sure we're saying it from Yah. Sometimes I need to say, Brother Jadiel, can help me with this one. Brother Rick, help me with this one. They do the same thing, and I think we have to do that with each other also. So, absolutely. But we're up on 2 hours exactly. So, this concludes our blessed study of Exodus chapter 18. We'll jump into Exodus 19, Yah willing, next week. Praise Yah and Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, Akuti, and Brohim. Thank you so much for viewing this video. We hope it was helpful to your walk in the truth. Remember to always search the scriptures on your own, to study Abba's word and show yourself approved, according to 2 Timothy 2:15. We invite you to study with us. To join us in a live study, just go to our website at assemblyofyahuah.com and click the Join Us tab. We have something available Wednesday through Saturday of every week. If you've been Baruch or blessed by this video today or any other study, we encourage you to go to the Giving tab on our website. Our elders all have their own ways of income, so none of the giving or proceeds go to them. Instead, it goes to biblical assembly needs. We also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any new videos. We sincerely pray that Abba continues to direct your path as you acknowledge Him in all your ways. Much avaha, and again, shalom.